Good evening, maniacs. So tonight I'm going to be reading to you the Russian fairy tale of Silvershod. It's one of my favorites, so I hope you enjoy it. So here we go. Once upon a time, of course, there was an old man named Vanya. He was all alone in the world, and one day he decided to adopt a child for company. But what child would like him well enough to come and live with him, Vanya wondered. Children can't belong to just anybody, as if they were kittens. When his neighbor heard of Vanya's plan, he said, "I know the very child. When Gregory Kara and his wife died, they left 3 children. The older girls have gone away to work as cooks. Dara, the 3rd girl, is only 6. She's still in her parents' home. A big family lives there now, and they don't want her." Jerks. "I thought I'd adopt a boy," said Vanya. "He'd learn to hunt like me. I don't know much about girls." Vanya went home and thought. He remembered the Karas. They were gay, happy folk. If Dara's like them, he thought, I'd never be sad again. On Sunday, Vanya dressed in his best and went to the next village, to the Kara's cabin. It was full of people of all sizes. In a corner sat a small, shy girl. A small, shy cat sat on her knees, purring. Vanya said to the mother of the big family, "Is that Dara Kara?" "Yes," said the mother crossly. "We have to feed and care for her, and that cat of hers besides. She's a nuisance." Vanya went to the little girl. "Will you come live with me, Dara?" he asked. "How do you know my name?" asked Dara. "I just know it," said Vanya. "Who are you?" asked Dara. "I'm a hunter. Winters I hunt the stag no one ever sees. Summers I hunt for gold in the river." "Do you want to kill the stag no one ever sees?" asked Dara. "No, no," said Vanya. "I kill the ordinary kind for food. But this stag is different. I just want to see his silver hoof." "Why?" asked Dara. "That's a long story," said Vanya. "If you come with me, you'll hear it." Vanya had kind eyes and a long white beard. Dara liked him. "I'll come," she said, "if I may bring Mora. She's my cat." "Of course," said Vanya. "Glad to have her. Her purr is better than a dozen violins." The cross mother had already packed Dara's clothes, for she was afraid the old man might change his mind. They walked to Vanya's house. The old man walked tall and straight, his white beard flying. Dara skipped in circles around him. The cat trotted after, her tail in the air. Vanya, Dara, and Mora the cat made a happy family. Each one had a job. Vanya hunted. Dara cleaned the house and got supper ready. Mora chased mice. They liked their jobs. In the evening, when they sat at the table, Vanya said, "I'm glad we're together." "Together we're safe," said Dara. "Right you are," purred Mora. The hunter wasn't lonely anymore. Dara wasn't frightened anymore. Mora wasn't skinny anymore. Vanya told lots of good stories. Once in a while, Dara said, "Please, tell me about the stag with the silver hoof. You said you would." And at last one day Vanya began. "He's a remarkable stag. His right forefoot has a silver hoof. When he paws the ground with that hoof, jewels spark out from it." Then he said no more. Soon he was sorry he'd said anything at all, for Dara never stopped asking about Silvershod. "Is he bigger than ordinary stags?" she wanted to know. "No, he's smaller," said Vanya. "He stands no taller than you, on strong, slender legs." "Has he horns?" asked Dara. "He has," said Vanya. "He has perfect 5-pointed antlers." "Does he eat little girls?" asked Dara. "Deer never eat people. Silvershod crops grass and leaves," said Vanya. "What color is he?" Dara asked. "He's red-brown in summer, the same color as Mora. In winter he's gray," answered Vanya. Autumn brought the hunting season. Vanya left at dawn and came home at dark. He was looking for the herd of deer. Dara wanted to go with him. "I might see Silvershod," she said. No, said Vanya kindly. You can't tell Silvershod from the other stags in autumn. Now they all have 5-pointed antlers. But in winter only the others lose their antlers, and only Silvershod keeps his. Next time, Vanya was away 5 days. When he came back, he said, I've found the deer. They're beyond the forest. It's a big herd. I'll spend the winter there. How can you live in the forest in winter? Worried Dara. I have a hut there, said Vanya. It has a window and a sturdy stove. It keeps me safe and warm, never fear. Is Silvershod there? Asked Dara. Who can tell? Smiled Vanya. Take me with you, cried Dara. I'll clean the hut for you and cook. Silvershod might come by. I'd see him. Vanya shook his head. No girl your age ever went to the forest in winter. It's lonely and dangerous. If you froze to death, what would become of me? Dara kept asking to go, and at last Vanya gave in. You may come, he said, but don't complain if you find it hard, my dear. Dara was delighted. Vanya got ready for the forest. He filled his sled with the supplies they would need for the winter. Dara got ready too. She packed scraps of cloth to make dolls' dresses, and she also packed a long cord. Perhaps Silvershod will let us catch him, she explained. Then we'd need a cord to lead him home. Dara was sorry to leave Mora behind. She said, You know, Mora, I almost got left behind too. How would you live out in the deep snowy forest? You mind our hut here while we're gone. As soon as I see Silvershod, I'll come back. I'll tell you all about it. Mora smiled and purred, Right you are. As Vanya and Dara set off for the forest, the neighbors stared and whispered. Vanya's crazy to take a child into the forest, they said. They left the village, and a red-brown streak shot past them. It was Mora. She kept just ahead of them and out of sight, until it was too late to send her back. When they got to the hut in the forest, she appeared beside them. Dara said to Vanya, It's more fun when we're together, all three. Right you are, laughed Vanya. They went into the hut, and Mora at once curled up by the stove and began to purr. Right you are, she seemed to say. That winter there were plenty of deer. Each day Vanya caught 1 or 2. Soon he had so many deerskin and so much meat that there was no room left to store them. Dara knew Vanya was wondering what to do. She said, Vanya, shouldn't you take the meat to the village and bring back a sled and a horse? You're a thoughtful girl, said Vanya. Aren't you afraid to be left alone here? No, said Dara. It's a strong, cozy hut, and Mora will keep me company. Vanya went back to the village. The first days passed as usual, just as if Vanya had gone hunting. At sunset, Dara watched Mora sleeping cozily by the stove. It kept her from feeling lonely. She went to sit at the window. Sunset rays flashed down the snowy slopes. As Dara looked, a quick shape darted from a clump of trees. It was a small stag with splendid 5-pointed antlers. Dara's heart pounded. She ran to the door, but when she looked out, nothing was there. I must have been dreaming, she said. The next day passed quietly. When evening came, Dara missed Vanya. To cheer herself, she stroked Mora and said, Don't be sad, Mora. Vanya will be here tomorrow. The cat purred and seemed to say, Right you are. Dara sat by the window, stargazing. Suddenly she heard a clatter of hooves. She tried to hear where the noise came from. It went up over the rooftop and down right to the door-sill. Dara tiptoed to the door and opened it. There was a small stag with beautiful 5-pointed antlers. He lifted his right forefoot, and Dara saw that it was solid silver. She was so excited she didn't know what to say. She clapped her hands. The stag laughed and ran off. Dara was sorry he'd left, but at least she had seen him. She hurried in to tell Mora. If he comes again, she said, maybe he'll strike the ground with his hoof and make jewels fly out. How glad Vanya would be. Mora purred, Right you are. The next day was quiet like the others. Dara expected Vanya that evening. He didn't come. She felt lonely, for Mora wasn't in her usual place by the stove. She looked and looked, but she couldn't find Mora. Dara was worried. She went outside to search for the cat. It was late. A full moon blazed silver on the snow. There, on a little hillock of snow, was Mora. Before her stood Silvershod. His right forefoot glinted in the moonlight. They seemed to be nodding their heads and talking together. Mora ran off a little way. Silvershod followed. When he was close, he turned and dashed away, and Mora followed him. Further and further they went, in a game like a wild dance. Dara watched until they disappeared. She waited to see if they'd return. They did. Silvershod came racing over the snow, Mora at his side. He leapt atop the hut and struck with his silver forefoot. As he struck, blue sparks leapt into the air. They fell to the earth as bright sapphires. He struck and struck. Red sparks flew and became rubies. Green sparks became emeralds. White sparks became diamonds. Heaps and heaps and heaps of jewels tumbled sparkling from the roof. Just then Vanya came. He could hardly see his hut under the rain and sparkle of precious stones. It was all a blaze of color and a flowering of light. Up on the roof, Silvershod struck and struck with his hoof. Suddenly, Mora leapt up beside him, with a strange cry that split the night. In an instant, Mora and Silvershod ran off and disappeared. Silence fell. Vanya pulled off his hat and filled it with jewels. "Let's leave them here for tonight," said Dara. "Just think how they'll sparkle when the sun shines on them." Vanya smiled and nodded. He took his hat full of jewels, and they went into the hut. It began to snow. Soon the jewels were hidden by a soft blanket of snow. Next day, Vanya went to dig the jewels from under the snow. He dug and dug, but the jewels had completely disappeared. He went inside and counted the heap of jewels he put in his hat. He had plenty. They were worth enough to make any man comfortable for the rest of his days. Old Vanya and young Dara looked at each other and smiled. They were happy, but they missed Mora. They never forgot her. The strange thing is, neither Mora nor Silvershod was ever seen again. Good night, maniacs.